The Team Supreme podcast is brought to you by the voices of Jason Schomer and Yashar Coffee and produced by Matt Sewell, who is me. I'm Matt Sewell. I'm producing this. Enjoy!
I'm from New Jersey. He's from Iran. It's good enough for a podcast. We're Team Supreme. When we were kids, it was like the renaissance of the action figure and toys, right? Like, wasn't like, I mean, I know it definitely started before us, like with G.I. Joes and, I guess G.I. Joe was like the main action figure, right? But
yeah,
but I think, but when I was a kid, I know that's when like the Star Wars boom happened with Star Wars figures. He-Man was like another huge one. Huge. God, yeah. I mean, He-Man, I think, was my number one. Did you like? Did you feel like in Iran it was matching the American toys at the time, or?
Well, not really, because when I was 3 years old, the Iranian Revolution happened, so they discontinued bringing American toys, also like showing American like cartoons. So then there was like a disconnect from that point forward. So I used to have these dolls that were Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy, and then I had a train and Lego, and then after that they all discontinued, so we stuck to Lego.
So when it was discontinued, there wasn't any toys being produced in Iran, like as its own like line.
Those toys were so low quality and shitty that we didn't even buy them because it would make the kids depressed. Like that was the thing my parents always said. Like, no, we don't even buy these because they're gonna make you depressed. Because everything's quality started suffering significantly because all the good like high-end products and parts were not being imported. Or actually, I should say, Iran was under sanctions, so the Iranian factories couldn't get them. So the Iranian toys were like really bad and depressing. So they tried to just buy us like foreign toys.
Yeah.
But those were extremely expensive. So
what do you mean by like bad? I don't want to get like bad and depressing. Like
let's say, you would like, these little cars kids play with.
Yeah.
Like there were the Iranian versions of those, but they would break down.
Matchbox and Hot Wheels?
Something like that.
But their version of Matchbox.
Yeah.
Like breakdown, like they would be on the side of the road.
Yeah, eventually, like not side of the road, but like in your living room, like it would break. And then usually the parts would sometimes, let's say, it would get under the foot of some like angry adult, and they were like, "The fuck is this?"
Yeah,
So
actually, I think that's a pretty international.
That's an international.
Yeah, you haven't
problem.
lived until you've stepped on 1,000 Legos.
Oh yeah. I think that's pretty much the full circle right there. Right, it's just that when you step on that first Lego as a parent, you're like, "Oh man, I'm here."
Yeah,
this is it.
The first of
it's
at least
over.
60,000.
Yeah, right.
I had a police car. I really liked that one. I played with it. And one night, my cousins came, and for some reason, I don't know what occurred to us. We just opened the window, and we were living on the third floor. And we threw all of my toys, including that police car, out of the window, and they hit the janitor in the head, and it made a huge mess. So after that, they didn't buy me any toys for 2 years.
So there was a 2-year penalty.
Kind of, yeah. But there was also an excuse like, you're 7 now, you're in the elementary school, you don't need toys, you need to study and all that. So
At 7?
At 7, yeah.
It's pretty. I mean, I kept all my toys as when I put them all. I remember I put them all in a box because I didn't have a sibling until I was 9, and it turned out to be a girl. Right, so I put up, but up until that point, I thought I was gonna have a brother one day. So I was like, I'm gonna keep all these toys for my younger brother one day. Might want to play with these. Forward thinking. Turns out, I had a sister, and that was it. The box stayed in storage, and I still to this day have that box. And I recently went into it and pulled out all my old toys from when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. The He-Mans, the Star Wars toys, there was a Voltron in there. You guys remember Voltron? Did you have Voltron?
Of course.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
no.
man. That was the ultimate.
Yeah.
Voltron couldn't be better. Do you know what Voltron is now, though?
No, I don't.
Okay, so Voltron was I think it was a Saturday morning cartoon. It might, that's how it started for
Japanese.
us. It was Japanese.
It was anime.
And, whatever, a simple form of the premise was that it was on some distant planet, and these fighter pilots discovered this ancient robot on this planet, and basically it was 5 robot lions that they drove and controlled that could fight as a team.
Okay.
And then when the shit really hit the fan, they would come together and form Voltron, which was the robot. It looked like a standing robot with a big giant sword.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
so like, well,
Intergalactic.
two lions were 2 legs, arms, and then the body and the head.
Wow,
And so it was a
interesting.
whole thing.
And then it had a competition. Remember, there was 2 types of Voltrons. There was one that was like the lion, and then there was one that was, what the hell was that called? It was a different one with.
a different cartoon, you mean?
No, it was a thing that would form.
You mean like an enemy?
No, there was 2 types. You know how there's Transformers and there was GoBots?
Oh, I see what you're saying. A different, like a bad spin-off. Sort of, not a
Yeah.
spin-off, but like a B version.
Yeah.
You said Transformers GoBots. Yeah. There was
What the hell was it?
There was another one. I do remember. Oh, it was like Robotech? No,
Something like that.
Something like that. I
Something
don't
like
remember.
that.
But yeah, so like that toy, I remember the Voltron toy was the toy of whatever year it was, and it was so expensive and so
wow.
big
Okay.
and really well made. And anyway, I did get that. It was my favorite toy. That was in this box full of stuff, and I pulled it out. My son, when I did this, was 7, so just
Right.
recently. And I pulled out all these toys, and he was kind of like, it was interesting to see his reaction to these toys. I think he was really confused about the He-Mans. He was like, why are these guys all naked? That was his first question. I was like, that's a good point. These guys
And
are
they have
pretty
the
much on.
exact physique.
They are the same physique, yeah.
Man at Arms,
Yeah.
his arms are the same arms as He-Man's arms. And
Skeletor's
Skeletor's
has
arms.
the same body, for sure. These were all.
They're all on the same nutritional program.
They all
Take the
ate
same amount of steroids.
That's right.
Exactly. Did you have the same thing, Matt? Were you the same? Was it He-Man and Star Wars? And
All that. I was a little late to the Star Wars game, but my cousin had all the Star Wars because he was right in the pocket for Star Wars in the 70s. So he had, when I would go to his house, he had all of the Star Wars shit, all the good stuff. And then, AT-ATs and the whole deal. But for me, it was Transformers,
Yeah.
Voltron for sure. Do you remember Mask?
Oh yeah.
Mask.
You didn't get that. I mean, Mask was
It was another team of people that would fight, and they all.
they all had their own
interesting.
vehicle,
Yeah.
their own type of vehicle that changed to a different vehicle.
Oh, when I
That's
hear
it.
Mask, I remember Jim Carrey's movie.
Yes, much
yeah,
different.
Yeah. Or that other one. Was it called The Mask? The one with Eric Stoltz about the
No, that movie was Mask.
was Mask also. There was another movie
which
where
I saw in a drive-in and fell asleep.
you saw in a drive-in.
Mask.
I've never been to a drive-in.
What? Are you from the East Coast?
I don't think drive-ins are an East Coast thing.
Hmm.
I think drive-ins are more of like a Midwest South thing.
Any drive-ins?
No, never heard of that.
There was until the Revolution.
The revolution
Yeah.
happened. The revolution was in 1979. I'm assuming He-Man was like in the 80s.
Yeah. it was in
Yeah.
the early-
So then
Well,
we
was
didn't
it-
even hear of that.
So in your childhood, under 10, was there ever a have to get toy that was out where you're like, oh my God, I got, like, not only you, but the majority of
The
kids your
majority.
age were like, I need to get that toy. Because that was like, it seemed like that every year here.
No, I hear you. Nothing like that at all.
Really?
Like it didn't even occur to us that there's like one thing that we all have to want it at the same time. Like this is the toy of the year or the country. Like anything you could get was good enough,
Probably too the marketing. I'm just guessing. You would know more than me, obviously, but the marketing is probably not as pervasive as it is here. Like we had Saturday morning cartoons, and that's when they would line up all the advertising they need to hit the 6 to 12-year-old kids.
Well, not only that, but the show itself was the advertising.
That's true.
This show, all those cartoons were made essentially to sell the products.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, not that I think, I'm sure, after the Iranian Revolution, we didn't have any advertisings whatsoever. it was considered like a capitalist type of a Western practice. So they banned advertising. I remember the first advertising I saw was when I was 10 years old. They started introducing like sort of like, modest advertisings for certain like checking and savings account for people who were low income, just to help them out.
Right.
And then after that, there was this one kind of orange juice that they advertised, but that was also like very sort of like conservative. Like this one extremely ugly looking guy came and he pulled out this orange juice and he drank it. And, by just looking at his face drinking that, you want to vomit. So it actually backfired. Like nobody will go and buy that. So that was the first signs. But now things have changed. Like, there are like online media channels and also like the Iranian TV. And there are lots of satellites. They're like advertising nonstop.
Right.
But nothing about toys. It's all about like, are you short? Come and take these supplements, then you'll be tall.
Right.
Do you have like a small penis? Take this pill and it's going to become a bigger penis, shit like that. But I don't,
That would have been a good morning cartoon.
That's
also.
right.
Yeah. That's I think that's as different as we've come so far when it comes to this. Yeah,
no advertising. But I remember one time I had this liver disease, like jaundice, I think it's called in English. I don't know, like where you pee blue or not brown.
Do you had?
I had it when I was a kid.
Oh,
so I was sick for a long time.
Your skin was like turning yellow.
Exactly, jaundice, yeah. So then towards the end of my illness, when I was recovering, my mom took me to this toy store. And she bought me this pistol that I really liked, and it was pretty expensive back then. I said, I want this, and she said, no, this is not good. Get something else. And I was like, no, I want the pistol. So she bought it for me, and it would get one of those blanks that would make noise.
It was like a cap gun?
Cap gun, I think. Yeah, they call it a cap gun.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was definitely that was a
huge toy
then, too.
Okay.
And all the ones that were made here when I was a kid looked like real guns.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, one of my favorites was an M16.
Oh, wow. Got it.
Nothing on it other than it being plastic. Really discerned that it was not, I mean,
real.
It was probably smaller, but when you pull the trigger, it would make a noise.
Yeah. Well, the cap, I collected cap. I loved cap guns, and those were the ones. So, like, I don't know if these are the same thing that you're talking about, or you were actually shooting blanks, but I know that it was, they came in like usually in a red circle ring, and there was like and it had a little smell of like gunpowder every time it popped.
Exactly, and the gunpowder thing was white.
Yeah,
and when you hit, and well, actually, the thing is, they bought that for me, so I used to like fire them, and then one time I sort of like inhaled the smoke.
Yeah, it burned.
And no, it didn't. And then I sort of like blow it out of my mouth as if I'm smoking cigarettes. Nice. And my mom saw that, and that was the end of me. For a few weeks, that toy was taken away.
Oh yeah,
because they were like, no, you're now learning how to smoke cigarettes, and then
now go play with your gun.
Well, yeah, no, don't play with your gun.
No,
so, yeah,
and say you should be playing.
Yeah. So then they took it away from me for 3 weeks, but then they gave it back to me, and that's it. I think I didn't know it's called a cap gun, but yeah, it had that red circular.
There was also like a red tape. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And it was like it wasn't tape like sticky tape, but it was like rolled like tape.
Yeah,
it was a red strip of paper, and they were these little bumps,
blister packs of gunpowder,
basically.
Oh wow!
And so like it was one of the if you took a cap gun that had sort of like one of those pullback cock triggers, that piece that was usually heavy would smack back and crush that little dimple in it or whatever and pop it. Yeah, it was probably the exact same substance, same smell. Yeah. But I remember as a kid I had this handgun, pistol that had those type of caps, and my favorite thing to do was to conceal this weapon in my pants wherever I'd go. Like if my mom had an appointment, like wherever she would go, she would have some sort of appointment or something where I was waiting in a waiting room. Mm-hmm. I would walk off into whatever hallway where they couldn't see me. I'd pull out this cap gun, I'd load it, and I would jump back into the waiting room and fire that thing off at people.
Wow.
And scare everyone. That was my favorite thing to do.
You would be on the news immediately.
Right now, today, I would be.
Right now,
Little boy walks in and Yeah, absolutely would be
Yes.
a story
Absolutely.
right now. Yeah.
Things are very different now.
Oh my gosh.
Very different.
Well, I'm listening to you talk about, and all of us talk about our parents, how our parents would punish us certain ways, and it just makes me go, boy, I'm being very light on my child right now. I don't hardly ever punish him.
Yeah.
To that extent, we're like, you're not getting this for 2 weeks.
It was weeks were involved when we were kids. It wasn't days. I feel like
No.
like if I'm grounded or punishing my kids now for how it's usually one thing. I'm taking your iPad away or the TV. It's a day or two. A day is devastating.
Yeah.
For back as a kid, yeah, toys taken away for an extended period of time in my childhood, I think had way more of a negative effect for me, emotionally than it does for my kids anyway. I mean, it's a little bit of a sting, but then it was like, when am I going to see it again? So,
well, I remember this one neighbor we had. Her grandma and grandpa came to the States because they had a cousin here or relative, and they brought back some toys, and one of them was this fart liquid.
fart liquid.
This liquid, like this drop where you would drop it and it would start
Stink
smelling
bomb.
like
Stink bomb.
we call it what? Stink
Bomb.
Stink bombs.
See, I didn't even know
Yep.
what it's called, but they had that. And then I went home and told my parents that they brought this, what I said, like the fart liquid or stink bomb. And both my parents were like, you see, the grandparents of this child are two stupid, uneducated, retarded people who bring such a stupid toy back for a kid to like make the place stink like a fart and like ass water and shit like that. And so then that was like really looked down upon, that somebody would have like even come up with that for a bunch of children, like make a mess. Or
We should name this episode Ass Water.
ass water. Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I had a friend in elementary school who brought in a stink bomb to school, and during an assembly, it was a liquid. I do remember, like, it was a thing where you actually had to throw and break. It was like in a little glass vial.
That's right.
And we were sitting up in the stands in the bleachers for this assembly in our gymnasium, and he just turned around and he just threw it right next to me onto the ground, and it popped.
Gross.
And everyone was smelling it, and no one knew what it was. Like, the teachers thought it was some sort of chemical. We evacuated the whole thing, and my friend got expelled. I never saw him again. I don't know where he went or what happened, but I remember that was like the last day I ever saw him.
Just a stink bomb, huh?
Just a stink bomb.
Wow.
Because it
Stink
caused an evacuation of an entire school.
As if like weapons of mass destruction being used. Or
Right.
something.
This is
Yeah,
we're
I got
testing
it.
these chemical weapons on Portly Elementary.
Stink bomb. See, I learned a new word today. Stink bomb.
And caps.
Stink bomb, yeah.
And caps,
Caps,
yeah.
stink
Yeah, it
bombs.
was stink bombs.
Voltron.
Voltron, yeah.
GoBots.
GoBots.
Here's a sad story. What? Go ahead.
No, I want a sad story.
So, I used to take my toys to school, and like I've seen my son do this too, and I'm like, I go, how can he do this? But I remember doing the exact same thing. I took about 4 or 5 Transformers to school, and I'm talking like the good ones, like Optimus Prime, Shockwave, the one that had the cassette in it.
Oh, yeah.
Starscream, and like one other one, and I had them in a bag, and I was just like throwing the bag around, like I wasn't even paying attention, and I broke all of my Transformers.
Oh, man.
And I was like, "What the hell?"
You broke them all.
Yeah, I broke my own toys because I wasn't being careful with them, and I think now that's carried over to my life where I'm like super careful with. I don't know, but like I see Greg doing that stuff all the time. I'm like, you're going to break your toys like I did in 2nd grade. It was the worst day of my life.
That's so weird. It's so funny that you broke them all.
But
I didn't see it going there.
I didn't make the connection of they're in the bag and I'm throwing the bag around.
Yeah.
Until I opened the bag and I saw that they were all broken.
It's funny. I have a story that's not the same. It's kind of the same, but in a much different way. I had a Game Boy. Did you know what Game Boy is?
Yeah.
Game board. Like
Game Boy.
Game Boy.
Game Boy, no.
A Nintendo, handheld Nintendo, yeah.
Yeah, basically. It was the first ever handheld game system.
Oh, yeah.
Where you could put
actually, I just remembered. a few of our neighbors, they had those. Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah.
We used to just call them games. Who has a game? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we would call it games too. I had a Game Boy and used it nonstop as a kid. Loved it. But then Game Gear came out. Remember Game Gear from Sega?
Yes.
This was
Color.
now in color. Game Boy was in black and white. It was black and white.
Yeah.
It was like a weird kind of green tint to it, but it was black and white. There was no color to it. Game Gear came out. That one was like a little mini TV that you could actually even play in the dark because it was bright like a TV. And that was a big deal because now you can play in bed at night when under the covers when your parents aren't watching. That was something I needed to get. Didn't have the money for it. Was saving up for it, but it was, taking too long. One day, I decided the only way that I'm going to get this from my parents in any way is if my Game Boy breaks. Oh, no. I'm not feeling good about this story because it's not good. I did take it to school. I did put it in a bag. But when I was walking off the bus to get to school, I took my backpack and on purpose swung it backwards, boom, right against the bus, the side of the bus, knowing I probably broke that Game Boy. And sure enough, I wasn't even around anybody, yet I still acted upset just in case. I opened my bag. What? Oh no, my Game Boy, the screen is cracked. God. I was so upset, but I knew, I was literally convincing myself that I actually had broken my Game Boy because I could not accept the fact inside that I was purposely doing this.
You were practicing method acting.
Immediately. Yeah. Oh, yes.
You're doing exactly what O.J. Simpson did.
Yes. In a very short amount of time.
That's right.
Went back home.
But instead of millions of people, you just did it for yourself.
For myself. Of course, I showed it to all my friends.
Look, I broke it.
Look what I did. What's wrong with me? Sound like Seinfeld.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I broke it.
Why did this Game Boy break? Went home, cried about it. I think I got that Game Gear. I know I eventually got it. I really do think it was a successful
son
plan.
of a bitch.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't feel good about it, but I love that Game Gear.
Hey, man, you got to do what you got to do as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Especially
way
for toys.
my son cons me, the way he cons me to download stuff for him or play or buy things, he is a clever little bastard. I can see him working hard, and then I'm like, God, he's just a kid. And then I think back, I'm like, oh yeah, I used to pull that. I used to manipulate my parents all sorts of ways.
But now that we think about it, we didn't do shit. Yashar had to have a liver disease.
I know.
To get what he wanted.
Yeah.
Thanks, Yashar. Thanks for making us feel real great about our. How old were you when you had
jaundice?
Yeah.
I was 9.
Did something cause it, or was it just?
Well, see, that was one of the mysteries.
Because usually it's a side effect of something bad happening to your body, like your liver will start to.
Well, the doctor said it could have been from eating something polluted.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because we traveled to this different city for a week, and then we came back, and as soon as we came back, I got it. Mm-hmm. And at first, I didn't know what it is, and then it wasn't going away. That was the scary part.
Yeah.
How long did you have it for?
Let me think. I think it lasted for 4 months.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I keep getting they put me on a very, very strict diet. I couldn't have eggs, anything that would put too much pressure on your liver.
Jesus.
So then, I lost a lot of weight. And
so you had to stop drinking at 9, huh? What a bummer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And then after that, it went away. As soon as it went away, my parents were so excited. They were like, "Oh my God, finally!"
Get this kid a gun.
Yeah, get this kid a toy, and then they got me a gun. Yeah. But that cap gun was just one of the toys that I still remember.
Yeah. Well,
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Did you ever have a rich friend or a friend that had every freaking toy in existence?
We had a neighbor,
Uh-huh.
and they were very wealthy, extremely wealthy. And they used to have homes in 3 continents.
Wow.
And their dad was, to this day, I don't know what his job was, but he was traveling a lot, like some type of a businessman / merchant. And anytime we went to their place, they had this nice bookshelf. And on top of that bookshelf, they had like all types of different toys from all over the world. And
Were they allowed to be touched?
not at all. Even they
course.
couldn't touch them. So we were only permitted to like look at them, and he would explain what they were. Like, this is this and that. I don't even remember. But it was just, to me, it was the most fascinating thing to watch. This like shelf with all of these toys. I had a toy, and I'm very ashamed of it. This was not really a toy. It was the shell, the cover of a lamp, like a
Yes.
particular lamp, but it looked like a bullet.
Okay.
And when I saw Scarface, I was 9, around the time that I was sick.
Spectacular.
And at the time, even
Trying to think of a liver connection.
well, I was left at home with all the videos. And in Iran, if a movie doesn't have like sexual scenes, it's okay to watch them. And mind you, like for weeks, I had nightmares of somebody cutting somebody's head with a
my
a
God.
chainsaw.
Chainsaw.
Like, yeah. But that last scene where that guy pulled the trigger of his shotgun and those 2 bullets went through Al Pacino's back. To me, the shell of those 2 lamps were those 2 bullets. And I kept playing with them. Like, I would ask one of my cousins to stand in front of the stairs, and I would envision them going like, I'm the bad guy who killed Al Pacino.
Right.
Like, that was my toy. Like, these
Yeah.
2 were my toys until my mom was like, what are you doing with these? Why are you playing with these like plastics and all?
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's genetic or what, or if it's part of the.
It's just, that's just, I don't, it's just mind blowing.
Mind blowing.
It's
Yeah,
mind blowing.
The kid was like that sick and diseased in the
I
head.
I get. I mean, I hate. It's weird to say, but I get almost like a guilty feeling when I hear that. You know, like I feel like, oh, here I am, like smashing my fucking Game Boy against a school bus so I could get a better Game Boy, and he's playing with 2 pieces of plastic.
2 pieces of plastics, picturing them. These are the bullets that went through Al Pacino's back.
Kind of related to that, one thing I've noticed, and I guess I've noticed it from watching my son. I keep bringing Gregory up, but I just keep
bring him
remembering remembering my childhood through that, and from that is, you know, we or boys or children in general, from what I've noticed, will make a gun or a bullet or a projectile out of absolutely anything.
Sure.
Absolutely anything. And when we first had Greg, we were like, oh, we're going to be a little progressive about how we bring him up. You know, we're not going to get him into guns and try to avoid that kind of thing and avoid video games or screens or advertisement. Like, we're going to be really LA about this. That fucking failed in like weeks.
Yeah.
But we didn't buy him guns. He started making them with Legos. Like
Right.
he was like, oh, this is an L shape. This is a gun.
Yeah.
Anything, this remote control, this is a gun.
Yeah.
This is a gun. This is a gun. And we never told him about guns. He just made things guns because that's what we all did.
That was the same. Guns
Yeah,
are
that's
a
all, yeah.
big toy.
Yeah.
Whether you make it or not as a kid, that's so for boys. My son's doing the same thing. He's. I mean, Nerf is not. I mean, we're like, okay,
Oh, I have
we're
a
gonna give him
whole,
Nerf guns.
I mean, my son is like the, Pablo Escobar of Nerf fucking weaponry. Like we've got like 15 Nerf guns.
Did we have Nerf? I don't remember having Nerf guns. as a
Absolutely
kid.
not.
No.
I would have loved
But
that
There was
shit.
just Nerf footballs.
Right.
That was it. It was Nerf footballs and
various
balls.
colors.
But right. But yeah, no. And thinking now about the toys today, because our sons are around the age we were
Mm-hmm.
on when these kind of toys were important to us. I mean, it's not a surprise that it's different. It's another generation. So, but it doesn't. I feel like there isn't. And tell me if you experience this as well, because having a son also is. It isn't the same about needing to get a certain action, like a specific toy. It's more of like there's a lot more of a collector's feel to it of everything he gets. There's like the Pokemon cards or the Minecraft. I mean, you know what it is now also? It's not connected to shows anymore. It's connected to a game.
Right.
Almost always a game.
Right.
And that's like now you're like you were saying before, like a gift is going to be downloading a game or
Right.
And then here's the toy.
And all the action figures that he's gotten are related to a game.
Yeah, they're all blocks. Everything is in block form now. Every figure, every animal. I mean, no, it started off with Minecraft, right? They're all like block shapes, and now
8-bit Jumping back to the 8-bit stuff.
Right. It's strange.
It is.
And I hate to say it, but like when he pulls out a gun, I'm like, I could relate to that. Let's play. Like I don't, when he pulls out, a Nerf gun, I'm like, let's set some targets.
Yeah. All
Or-
the time. Did you, when you, did you have a BB gun or anything that actually fired a projectile?
Well, the same neighbor that I was mentioning
Right.
that were really rich, they were having a couple of guns, but there were 2 BB guns and 1 hunting gun because the gentleman was a hunter and he used to go, there were these forests in Iran where you could go hunt rabbits and on occasion a bear, a bear. So then long story short, my dad, one time I nagged a lot. I watched Rambo 2 and I told my dad I want the knife that Rambo has. And my
Rambo
dad
knife?
said like, that's impossible. That's a weapon. It's illegal, whatever. And then he said, listen, like when you grow older, I'll buy you a BB gun. And that never happened. Like they never bought me a BB gun. But we had neighbors who had BB gun and the neighbor I was mentioning, they had BB guns and they used to go out and shoot targets and all with them. Yeah.
I think for me, when you were talking about, did you have a friend who was really rich? And I lived in a kind of a town, a little village in upstate New York. No one was exorbitantly rich, but the exotic toy that my certain friends had that I did not have were BB guns. I never had a BB gun
Yeah,
myself.
neither did I.
My mom, there's no fucking way my mom would allow
hell
a
no.
BB gun in the house. No way. But my friends had BB guns, and it was like, this is how sick it was. Like,
Can I try it once? Can I try it?
Yeah, you'd hear, oh, I'm gonna go hang out with Cody or whoever, and immediately my mind's like, oh, I'm gonna get to play with this fucking BB gun. This is
Yeah.
gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And then
I didn't know anybody with BB guns. I knew there was one kid who had a BB gun, and he was like a crazy kid and would sit up in like a high, like in the next to a baseball field in like the woodsy area and just hit people.
Oh my god!
From like as like a sniper until he was busted, and then he lost the gun. I think he got arrested.
I did that with a water balloon launcher, but I was in college. I was not a child.
Yeah, you were. I remember. I mean, for me, like all the kids with divorced parents had the best toys, right? I mean, they were the ones that were
because they had the phrase, "My dad lets me keep this one." My mom don't let me keep this one.
They had
This
two
was at my
sets of
dad's
toys.
house.
They had 2 sets of toys, right? 2 houses. So yeah, but with my friends though, I never saw probably both their houses. But I remember like I had 2 specific friends that had divorced parents pretty early, and their toy collection increased 20-fold. It felt like they all of a sudden had every action figure, every game,
because they gotta
everything.
make up for the destroying their childhood
Exactly.
by buying them.
Right. But I felt like those were all, they didn't care about their toys like we did, obviously because they had them more. But I remember there was this kid I knew, Ryan. He had his parents were divorced. He had such he always reminded me. Remember the movie The Toy with Richard Pryor?
Yep.
It was about a kid. Did you ever see it?
No,
Redhead
never.
kid.
Kid got was rich, had every toy he ever wanted, and we'll watch it one day.
All right.
All together.
Yes,
we'll live
watch
stream it
together.
and
Reaction videos. That's next. We started hanging out with him and going to his place because not only he had the best toys, but when it got to a point where it was getting stale hanging out with him, we didn't really I remember not really liking hanging out with him that much. I mean, but he would start giving toys away. Like, hey, you want this? I don't want to play this anymore. I don't use this anymore. And he would give you. And it was always that weird feeling of like, all right, well, bye. And like walking out with like
All
one
his
of his
toys.
toys in his hand. And you're walking past his mom, and you always have like, are you borrowing that? Like, no, he
That's
gave it to
funny.
us. And okay, guys, see ya. Yeah.
you were talking about that friend that would have, there was one friend who had, being a fan of G.I. Joe, you'll remember this. I don't know if you will. There was a full 7-foot-long aircraft carrier
Oh, yeah.
That
That
you
was the
could-
big box of Toys R Us that you would stare at.
that you could buy, and it was G.I. Joe's, so you could probably put every G.I. Joe ever on it. But it had also a CB radio on it where you could pick it off the thing, make announcements to the crew of the boat. But he had that, and he had all of the GI Joe shit. He had the SR-71 thing. He had just like every GI Joe accessory, toy, enemy, friend, like the whole deal. And I remember that would pop into my mind. I'm like, oh, we're going over to Chris's house. He's got the whole goddamn G.I. Joe. We're going to be doing G.I. Joe all weekend. We're going to have a sleepover. The bummer is I'm going to have to go to church with his family and have to sit through them saying grace. But if I can get through that, I'm going to have a great weekend.
Small price to pay.
Small price.
Yeah.
But the church, I don't know. Church was tough for me.
I bet.
That was fucking tough.
I'm sure there was definitely no G.I. Joe.
No, no. I heard of GI Joes when I came here.
Yeah,
I'd like to know.
There was a question I forgot to ask you before. The police car you liked, was it in Iran?
No, it was German.
It was a German.
It was German. Like there's an obsession with German products in Iran. Like if something is German, it's considered very high quality.
Well, because it's true.
It is true.
German things, generally everything, like I can think of, or is better.
Very high
just so
quality.
made. It's made so well. Their cars are made well. Their audio equipment, is made well.
And their toys, I guess.
And their toys, apparently,
toys,
and their police cars.
They could be thrown out a window.
Unfortunately, I did, but
Just
that was
yeah.
It's considered like really a high-end toy because it was German.
Did you have WWF wrestling in Iran?
No, we didn't. However, for a period of 2 years, we lived in this city that was on the border of Iran and Iraq. And from there, we could watch some of the TV programs that were being broadcasted in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. And they used to have WWE and WWF.
Yeah.
And they're like, if the connection would be good when the weather was sort of like moist and hot.
Yeah.
Like kind of like Houston, Texas.
It travels better.
The waves would travel better. So then that's where I watched like a bunch of wrestling, sort of like WWE.
Well, they used to have action figures for all the wrestlers.
Yes, yeah.
And I had a bunch of them. I loved WWF when I was a kid, and I had those action figures. But it's funny. What brought it up is there was, I don't know if you knew this or remember, but there was a bad guy called the Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik, yeah.
There's a documentary out about that guy.
Yeah.
I heard it's
right.
really great.
That's right. He has like a whole a huge social media following, but it's not really him. It's managed by these two guys who were huge fans of his that kind of do an impression of him. But I didn't know like if was the Iron Sheik like offensive or was it were Iranians a fan of the Iron Sheik?
It's actually a very good question. At the time, we had no knowledge of this guy's existence.
Right.
Like we didn't know who he was, and we never heard of him. I came to the States, and I had these two clubs that I lift for my shoulders. It's like an Iranian weightlifting thing. And an American neighbor of mine in the dormitory came and said, "Oh my God, Iron Sheik used to use those." And I said, "Who's Iron Sheik?" And then that sort of like
Whole new world opened up.
Exactly. That generated some interest, and I went online. I was like, "Oh wow, this guy used to be a wrestler in Iran," and then he came here and started doing like WWE. But in the documentary, it's mentioned that he was a contender at the Olympics.
Oh yeah,
but he wasn't. Of course, he wrestled for the Iranian national team, which is a huge honor.
yeah.
Because wrestling is Iran's national sport.
Is it?
Yeah, and in the Olympics, that's 90% of the Iranian medals come from wrestling. Yeah.
Was those toys were like those rubber ones,
Yes.
right? They were. I had that.
They
Hulk Hogan.
They were
and
hard rubber too. Like it'll break a window if you throw it out a window.
Well, they were wrestlers. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that being a big deal. I remember a guy who lived like pretty close to me. Like we all would go to his house because he had the actual ring.
I had the ring.
You had the ring.
I had the ring.
You didn't have to go to other people's houses.
I had the ring and the deal. And what I used to do was, they were these hard rubber. They made it really durable because they knew kids would wrestle with them and throw them around and try to break them. And you couldn't break them. You could not break them unless you froze it, I guess. I don't know. But what I used to do was they had this paint on them that was their their boots or whatever, and if you hit the other one hard enough, it would leave a mark, and I would make that.
That was a point. It was a little victory if you made the mark.
Yeah, it was like a scar. It was like whoever had the least amount was definitely the I'd have whole matches and
If I think about, I could think of the smells of all the toys. Too.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the smells. I remember specifically also. Do you remember like how some toys came with like slime or like it was some sort of like goop that was something else? Like especially like
That
He-Man
smell.
had a lot of them, like some sort of slime that would go with like one of the castles or something like that.
That's right.
That
It would-
slime smell, that like really pungent sort of like factory slime smell.
Do you remember? Oh, here's one. Oh shit! Those little pink guys.
Muscles.
Yes.
Muscles. I had 1,000 of them. 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake, the first one or two that I got, I brought it into school and used it as an eraser. And it worked as an eraser because it was rubber.
That's funny.
Oh my God. My friends, they were like, what are you doing?
Yes.
like,
Because
what?
they're collectibles.
Yeah. And they were like little collectible guys.
Wow.
I think some of them had like holes at the bottom to put on pencils, like if I remember right. I don't
Probably.
remember. But I had the video game eventually of that thing too. I loved
They had
Muscles.
a video game.
I don't think anybody remembers Muscles.
What was your? What did we talk about? What was the big game system that hit you first? Like the big.
Atari?
It was Atari.
Yeah, Atari was the biggest one.
How did they have Game Boys? Like how if you weren't importing anything, was this
Exactly.
coming from Japan?
No, it was the same way my neighbor had them. Like they had a relative overseas who would visiting, and they would bring them one of these what we called games
Yeah,
and gave it to them, and they played it. The parents would travel. I mean, you could bring like one or two items. It
Right.
wasn't banned, but you wouldn't find like an export of like a plethora of these games.
well, before Game Boy, I do remember the handheld games that I would get and we would get were the ones that had one game. It was just that game, and basically it was like baseball, and it was just like
Football and the little dots.
and
that moved
yeah,
around.
we just move back and forth, right? And sometimes even before that, it felt like it was some. I had ones that weren't even electronic that you would wind up, and it was like just lights coming down. Like I remember it being a racing game where you would just use a little wheel that would go back and forth, and lights would go past it.
I kind of remember that
Yeah,
too.
so it was like
Very
a fake
fuzzy.
handheld video game before where they even had the ability to put it together. And
I had that fucking football that the whole thing would vibrate and the guys would just kind of drift
what
around.
was that? I got that I remember. I don't know where I got that from. I remember like
There are leagues now. There's
That-
people that have saved these things for
I didn't
35
get it.
years.
My dad loved it. He was so excited. Do you know what we're talking about?
No.
Go ahead.
So basically, it's this football game, right? And it's not a video game. It's an actual like board. I guess it's not a board game. It's like a football field that's like made out of very thin metal, and it just goes on the floor, and you plug it in, right?
Yep.
And you have a whole team. Your team are these little figure guys that would sit. Their legs were like in like almost like a little oval shape or something that allowed them to stand on this field basically, so they wouldn't tip over.
yeah,
right?
they were on like little platforms.
Mini
I don't know what the hell
platforms.
they
Each had their own little mini platform, and you would line them all up on your side. And basically, what you would do to play the game was that if you had the offense, you had the ball. It was like a
were.
little
Little piece of foam.
little tiny little football, and you would somehow stuff it into one of your player's arms, so he'd be holding it, and you put him behind the line of your guys. You would line up your guys, and you put him behind it, and the defense who was playing the other team would line up his guys, and everything's still. The play's all set. Everyone's in position, and you just click on, and the metal piece would just go, just start vibrating, like really. And all of them would just start moving in their own.
And you could steer them. Remember, there's a little wheel you could put. There was a little wheel on it on the bottom.
Oh, before you place it down, so
Yeah.
you know which direction they go.
So it would go a certain direction.
So like because when you hit the vibrate, they would all move in directions, and somehow they would always just kind of just come together, and you would push. And the second that the other team touched your guy, click it off, and that's where the ball is now. And you got to get to the end zone.
if possible, it was actually slower than actual football.
You're right.
wow.
If you tried to
It
play
was
a football game,
Hours to make
No
to get
way.
through a game. It was like because you
To
have
set
to
up every play.
every player.
Would take like 7 to 10 minutes.
I mean, I feel like I'm talking about like before there was electricity like products. Like that's what it feels like playing that game. It's like, what are we doing here?
I read some article where it's like there's people that collected. And I guess part of it was too. All these players would come blank, and you'd paint each one your favorite color, your
Yeah.
favorite team's colors. Like,
Wow,
if you're a
got it.
Bears fan, you gotta paint this.
I could see that as being a thing. Of course, it's a thing.
Was there? So wrestling's was a big sport. Was soccer a big sport in Iran or not?
Soccer, yeah.
So
But the Iranian soccer team wasn't as good as the wrestling team.
right, were there games based on like for you
No, not
soccer
at all,
or
no.
anything like that?
There were these two main teams that were playing
Wrestling.
every now and then. Wrestling, yeah. Well, wrestling, we had like a bunch of like, clubs and.
How about toys?
What about like
of some sort?
foosball? You didn't have the foosball table with the soccer?
No, we did have football
Yeah.
table, yeah.
I guess it
but
wasn't really a toy.
It wasn't that big.
Yeah.
If you had a friend that had a foosball table, fucking jackpot.
Really?
Oh yeah.
We didn't. Not by me. It was more of the hockey one.
Air hockey?
Not air hockey. There was air hockey at the arcades.
Oh, I know
But
what
at
you're talking
home
about,
was the
the-
guys that slide back and
The
forth.
kick, yeah.
And you
I had a
that
friend
one
that had
puck.
that too.
Those were big. Like we had huge games with that.
Yeah.
That was fun because that was fast moving.
Yeah.
Speaking of moving, I think
We should move to Pasadena for the next show.
we should go watch The Toy.
Let's do it.
I think that's a good idea.
I like it.
All right, boys. Supreme.
Supreme.
Or are we not saying Team Supreme anymore?
Well, at the end we were saying Supreme, weren't we?
No, we were saying Team Supreme.
Let's do Team Supreme.
All right, boys. Team Supreme.
Team Supreme.